Hello, my name is Stickybuds, and Seasick asked me to reach out to his class and especially to Spark, I believe. Uh, so, hello, Spark. Thanks for wanting to ask me some questions, and I hope what I have to say will be informative. So, Seasick sent me some questions. The first one is, who is my mentor? And to be totally honest, I don't really have one, and I've never had one. I'm self-taught. I taught myself how to DJ in 2004. I was going to raves at the time. Loved the culture, loved the music. I have a pretty musical family. My dad, especially, him and all his brothers and sisters were in a successful band, back in the day, and they all taught music. So even though I didn't learn how to play music, I just kind of had it in my blood. So I bought some turntables, figured out how to beat match, how the music worked. Went from there. I went to the Center for Arts and Technology in Kelowna, and from 2004 to 2006, I got a bachelor degrees of music or something like that. It was a 2-year program, basically half studio recording and those techniques, and half computer music composition, music theory, recording in Pro Tools and Logic, synthesis, that sort of thing. So I kind of did that and went from there, started making my own tunes. I put out my first release in 2008 on a label called Good Group Records, and I think since then I have 30 or 40 releases on probably 20 or 30 labels, something like that. And I would say other mentors, yeah, I mean, like Kubert was a huge one. I bought his scratching tutorials DVDs back in the day, and that was how I taught myself how to scratch. In Kelowna, where I lived, there wasn't too many people I could hang out with to kind of learn those things, so it was just all on myself to do that stuff. So, sorry, just let me turn my phone off. It's annoying. So I just taught myself all those things, and yeah, I just went from there. A constant flow of learning and always trying to become better, and all those sorts of things. So yeah, I would just say the kind of collective of the music scene always inspired me to continue to keep pushing and making my skills better and stuff. So yeah. Second question, I believe, is how often do I use Ableton to make custom mixes, mashups, intro, outro edits? How important is this for distinguishing your sound? So I do this all the time, and this is the number one important thing for my own creativity and how I've set myself up to be different. So what I have in Ableton right now is basically how I make all my sets, and have done so for um, basically since I started. So in 2005, when I kind of started figuring out how to make my own mixtapes and stuff like that, I did it all multi-track because that's where my brain was at the time going to school, and I just knew that that was how I could really um, sketch things out, make things interesting, and kind of merge the worlds of music done organically, like just playing it yourself, and what could be done on computers and what could be different. So, excuse me. This is where I'm at these days. So this is my most recent Shambhala set, and this is how they all look. So I don't know how many tracks this is, probably close to 250 or something. Each one of these is a group, and I'll get into that later. So this is how I sketch and plan my sets, and this is where they all start and reside, and then I'll export them out into pieces and actually DJ them in Serato. And doing it like this just really enables me to push the boundaries of music, push like set composition and all the acapellas and genres and tempos that I play, and do it seamlessly, and do it in like a really pleasing way for like the listeners, whoever's on the dance floor to listen to. So if you see the bottom, this is like the tempo map. So kind of it's always changing and stuff like that. But this, I've done these sets so many times. This is my 13th year that I just played at Shambhala. So the last, I don't know, like the last like 6 or 7 years, I've been doing it in Ableton in this style, and then just like refining the techniques and getting better at doing it, being able to do more interesting stuff. So let me just like open up a couple groups. So like each group will be an export in Serato, and this is kind of how I do it so I can DJ, but this is all the planning, and this is where all the hard work goes into. So like, I think in my Shambhala set, so here's Serato, so here's my sets, Shambhala 2017. So these are actually like the exported pieces. So this is how my set looks, and I'm actually playing it. So this Ableton set of 250 tracks or something gets knocked down. These are extra things. This is the end of the set. I always have some extra stuff just in case I didn't quite time it right, but I always time it right, just at least for these sets. I note down to the second basically how long my set's going to be, but sometimes you don't know if the DJ after you is going to show up, or who knows. It's always just good to be prepared for extra stuff. So I'll usually, in all my sets, I always have some extra stuff. And then these are the sets that I've made throughout the years. I've deleted some for sure just because they're a lot of redundant and I don't need them. But yeah, for the last like 6 or 7 years, all sorts of different sets that I can always go back to, and all the edits and everything, and they're all numbered and blah, blah, blah. So this is the actual set that it turns into, all the pieces. And kind of like how I do my sets is almost everything's are like acapella intro and outro, or instrumental intro or outro, or a combination of one of the two. It's usually like an acapella intro and an instrumental outro of whatever's coming out. So this is like the very first track of my mix. So you can see, shit, let me just see, hopefully. Oh, I think just because I opened Serato before I opened up my sound card preferences, it is playing. It's playing out of my laptop speakers. I don't know if you'd be able to hear that, but this is actually the first song from a mix. Okay, so basically like what I was talking about is like there's a track here. So what happens at the end of this track is there's just the vocal of this song, and I produced this song, so that's why I can engineer it in a totally other session, like the actual production session of this song. Get up off of that thing and dance, you feel better. So this is this James Brown recreation acapella that I sampled a whole multi-track recording to make that song, and so when I'm engineering this session, so when I actually DJ, this is going to drop into this song. So, get up off of that. Get up off of that thing. And dance, you feel better. So this is a remix I did for Caleb. So this is just the instrumental part here. Do you feel better? Get up off of that thing. And when I'm writing tunes and I make tracks, I always export the full version that will have vocals, and I'll export the instrumental version. And then when I'm making these sets or when I'm DJing and stuff, I'll have the different, because I don't know exactly what I'm going to do in the mixes, where the acapellas will go to or where I'll choose them to go. I want to have both, and I'll send both to my friends too, so they can put their own acapellas or do whatever, have the flexibility to do different things. So you can see like this is the instrumental right here. So if I expand this, and this is a vocal version up top. So I just needed the instrumental to go over this acapella here, and then it goes to the acapella. Okay, so you can see this vocal from the previous song. I plan to come in again. Now, when I export my set, all of this, like when I export this, I would start the export from here to there. And so the track would include these little acapella bits. And so you can see in Shambhala set.
Everybody ready? Off of that thing.
So these acapella bits are in there.
Get up off of that.
Now that lets me trigger it. So I DJ with dicers and a Rin 62, so I can trigger these or like do a little scratch and drop it in time, you know, wherever I want.
Get up off.
Or I can just let it play out if I don't feel like triggering it, and it will be in time because I've mapped all this stuff out already. So then it goes into, so this is the vocal version, these little samples. This is the instrumental version, so I wanted to play that vocal over it, back into the vocal, and then back into the instrumental.
Real top rankings.
And then that's when a new acapella comes in. So this is from Crafty Cuts and Dynamite MC, song Ain't My Fault.
High score, real top ranking. Ding-a-ling-a-ling, whole school step.
And let me just talk about acapellas. So like you can get them. There's millions on the internet. Acapellas.co.uk is a great place for getting them. And I mean that's where I used to get them back in the day when I started doing this a decade ago. Or you can go find torrents and blah blah blah. And that's mostly like popular music that's been released, and they'll release the acapellas and stuff like that. But as you grow, and especially if you're a producer that is getting some success and you're building your network of people that you work with, you're going to have friends and stuff that make music. And so you want to hit up your friends and get all the stems, and stems are just the pieces, like the multi-track recordings of those songs. So sometimes when I'm making mixes like this all multi-track, I'm actually like, instead of an acapella, I'm using like the guitars or just like the drums. And I can show you like this next mix combo is a little bit complicated, and we'll have some of that stuff. But that's where you get like good exclusive stuff. So like for instance, like this It Ain't My Fault acapella, very few people have that. Crafty Cuts sent it to me and the people he works with. Like the pull-up acapella for Caleb, I did that remix, so I have that acapella. All the stems to this first song that I made, I have all those acapellas. And then you see this combo right here that's coming up. So this is just a really kind of quick edit of my Caleb remix, just a few like back and forth between the chorus and the main verse things. And then usually this part of my Caleb remix has the original vocals of the Caleb song, kind of the rap part, but I put in the Ain't My Fault. And these are all the same key. That's a really important thing to say too, is that they're all harmonically in tune with each other, and that's a really important thing. Like you want your music to be in key. You can't take a song that's in a totally different key and put it over another instrumental that's not, because it's going to sound terrible. So music theory and all that is really important. On my desktop here, it is a total disaster at the moment. So this is the circle of fifths right here, and also the mixed in key guidelines. So look into that basically from wherever you are. So these songs that I'm showing you right now are in F minor, so they're 4A. So technically things in C minor or B flat minor, 3A or 5A should theoretically work, or you can jump to the relative major of F minor, which is A flat major. 90% of all the music that most DJs play is minor. Most music in the world is minor. It's got just that. It's got the flattened third and just has a more like badass sound to it, where major music is very happy and like I don't know. The only place I really find major key music is in reggae, and I don't usually play that unless I'm doing like a beach time day set. That's where I'll play like happy reggae music. But still, for the most, what's pleasing to my ear is minor, so the majority of that is what I do. So that's kind of like just a little bit of theory and thinking about how you combine these things. Super important. This is another chart that I just made myself, and this is basically like a computer keyboard, so like a piano with these keys mapped to it and where they actually are in relation to the keys. So I use this more for transposing, and that just means changing the key of something. So if I'm in F4A, what I'm in right now with these songs that I'm showing you, if I can't find an acapella that I want, and in Serato, let me just show you, like these are my acapellas, my acapella collection. I don't know how big it is, like probably 10, 15,000 acapellas. These are like exclusive acapellas. So remember when I said like hooking up with your friends and getting stuff, these are all acapellas that pretty much very few people would have. There's a few kind of like common ones in here that maybe like I went found in or somewhere. someone important or whatever. But for most of the part, like a lot of this stuff is super exclusive. And so all of it's keyed. So when I'm working and I'm in a 4A instrumental, an F minor instrumental, I'll go to my exclusive acapellas first because I want to use like, you know, the more rare stuff to make my set more individualistic, and it's the stuff, you know, that I really like anyways. So if I'm going through and I can't find an acapella that works on the tempo or the track that I'm doing, then I'll maybe go to another key. So if I'm in 4A, F minor, the next key that would be the easiest to find an acapella in would actually be G flat or F sharp minor, which is 11A. And what I would do then is put it into Ableton and transpose, meaning move the semitone of it basically. I'd transpose it down one. So I'm taking the entire acapella and moving it down a semitone. And in Ableton, you would just do, just click on the acapella.
High score, real top rank.
And transpose it this. I just hit down one.
High score, real top rank.
So all the notes in his voice have gone down one. So if you're transposing things, you're basically trying to make it fit the key. And that's basically what this chart is for. So I could transpose an 11A down one, or I could transpose a 9A up one, or like a 6A down two. So it'd be 1, 2 to get to F, or any kind of thing like that. So yeah, so back to the set. You know, this is kind of how I do it and how I make it. And the question was about Ableton. So like this is, you know, really pushing the boundaries of how you engineer a set. Lots of people don't do this, or they do this to a little bit of a degree, but this really just helps me make a really nice finished product. So in my Shambhala sets, I often kind of make these like Shambhala dub plates and stuff, and that's what these are kind of training into. So these are all the vocals from Blackout J.A. and Daddy Freddy. Blackout is the reggae guy I use a lot of my Shambhala mixes, so I'll hire him, pay him money, and send him a beat, and we'll do a new Shambhala song, and then he'll send me the multi-tracks. And so these vocals are connected to the end of my pull-up remix, so basically right here, when this track drops, as soon as this drops in Serato, I'm dropping this vocal on it. So on 2 different decks.
Real top rank.
And then this vocal also combines with this vocal, and then also combines with this group. So it's an acapella intro.
It ain't my fault.
So this is the K-Lab pull-up acapella. So it goes from the crafty cuts to the pull-up acapella. Then after the pull-up acapella, it merges into the pull-up track.
Down, baby. Gotta rip my hood.
So this is K-Lab's pull-up instrumental that K-Lab gave me, and I had mastered separately just so I had a full mastered version of it. And then I actually sent this instrumental to Blackout J.A. and Daddy Freddy to do the dub plate vocals on.
My hood.
Now the whole world eyes. You just cannot deny.
So this is the kind of Shambhala song and stuff. So when I'm DJing, both of these are playing on 2 different decks. And the reason I have to do that is just because it'd be literally impossible to do this any other way. There's just so many pieces and things happening. It's like 2 or 3 tracks and vocals in the span of 30 seconds happening at once. So, you know, this is how I do it. This isn't how you have to do it or anyone else does it, but this is how I found I like to do my stuff. So yeah, so all these vocals go
Someone
on.
jam up every corner. Blackout and Daddy Freddy in your ear. Blow that tune, Stickybuds for me. Hey. Girls them wine in a ecstasy. Got me sick of the music mentally. Got my eyes on the price, so them send for me. Stop. Say Stickybud in the place. Wine up your body.
So yeah, so there's that, and then at the end of this track, so when I was talking about multi-tracks and stuff like that, okay, so this vocal ends, and so this is also a trick I use too. So like the acapella like starts on the old track, and then at somewhere in this track, that same acapella gets merged into it, so I can play another acapella or instrumental kind of combo that goes on with it. So oh, they're right there. Yeah, so like when I exported out it, like all of these would have been one export. So like the acapella intro, these little acapella bits, and the reason these are in their own group is because I just have like some compression and a bit of EQing on this channel group, and sends to some reverbs and stuff like that, just to kind of make the vocals sound good. And then the other thing that I do on the tracks too is that I'll EQ them. I'll pull out a bit of the mid-range so that the vocals have space to actually sit on the track. And this is a technique that you have to just like learn how to do properly, because it's different for every single track. But basically, the kind of theory behind it is that you grab a spectrum analyzer of any sort, doesn't matter what kind, and you're basically going to look at the vocals. So like on the pull-up vocal, we kind of have like, I'm looking down at the bottom corner right here when I'm moving the frequency. So the main peaks are around 340 hertz, that's like the low mids, and then probably around, like 600-700 hertz, and one around 1K. So these are the main points of a track that I would come down and actually EQ out. This EQ on this track is actually mostly for these vocals, the Blackout and Daddy Freddy vocals. And so for the most part, like I've just kind of dipped the mid-range of the vocal out. And that's just increasing the legibility of being able to pull out the frequencies of the track that are clashing with the vocal. And so that's a really important thing to do. And it also just a bit better for the gain of like the tracks. When you pull out a bit of volume here, because when you're EQing frequencies out, you're decreasing the volume, and it's just leaving a bit more headroom for those vocals to come. Because if you're just smashing like loud vocals over a fully mastered track that's mastered to like 0, it's just you're going to get clipping and stuff. So this is just kind of how you can stage that properly. And also some kind of other things, like I've added like some extra effects and stuff. And that's a little trick I'll do lots of times, like just little sound effects or white noise, like downers and risers. That's not one, like this. It's probably just like a crash kit. Yeah, just a crash. Check it. Okay, so it goes from like this K-Lab instrumental, Blackout, JA, dub plate. Check it while we direct it, seasoning on our names. So in the me and K-Lab's Clap Your Hands Now track, and same thing. It's like this will be. Oh, I have to look at where. Yeah, so like this is how this track starts with the vocal, and then it goes into just the drums. Now this is just the drums from Caleb's pull-up. Now I'm probably the only person in the world who has these other than Caleb. He's one of my best friends, so I'm like, yo, send me the drums, or I have the full multi-track of everything. And also really important to stay organized when you're doing this stuff. So I have like a full multi-track folder of all the multi-tracks I get from people, just so like when I'm doing edits and stuff, they're always in the same place. And if I'm getting like just little pieces, like I'm asking a friend just for like little bits of their tracks, I have this folder just for like random pieces, so they always go in there. Just trying to stay organized is super important, because if you just have crap sitting all over your computer and you move stuff or you delete stuff by accident, and then you go back to a session like this to do stuff. So like I'll have different iterations of this session. So like after I make my Shambhala set, I'm obviously not going to play it start to back at other shows that I do, but I'm going to go in and make different edits. So I have like So I have like Shambhala 2017 new set edits. So this is like a different session with all the same stuff, but I've gone in and started to change things. So when people hear it, if they've listened to my Shambhala set, they might think they know what's going to happen, but maybe I've changed some acapellas, or I've changed what the track mixes into a new combo or something. So yeah, so these are just like the kicks and snares from Pull Up, and then that goes into me and Caleb's track Clap Your Hands Now, which is just like an instrumental kind of opening. But because it has the drums, just the drums from this track, it makes it sound really clean, like just these drums continue, and then our new track comes.
Check it while we direct it. Seasoning on our names, so sample it and respect it. Evening out the flames, the fire starters and lion hearters. Big buggers, if I can't hear ya, you should shout loud. Hear ya. You should shout louder, 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 louder. Clap your hands loud.
Yeah, so that's basically the anatomy of how my tracks work, or how my mixes work. Also, like when I was talking about EQing stuff, we can do it selectively. So this little thing right here is basically, so this EQ is for our Clap Your Hands track. So when this mixes, because there's vocals here and because there's drums here that have a lot of low end, there really isn't much low end in this part of the track anyways, but there is a bit on the like kick explosions that happen at the start and kind of on every 32 bars. I've just cut off, you know, the very sub frequencies, and like I was talking about before, I pulled out some of the mids just to make room for these vocals and stuff. But then it turns off as soon as the track actually like is kind of playing. Because when this actually drops, I want it to be like how it's supposed to sound. And then yeah, little vocals and stuff like that, and so like, and just to show you how to change genres, and then I'll probably leave it at that because this probably doesn't need to be an hour long for you guys. This is probably supposed to be a quick Q&A, but it kind of can turn into this sort of thing. So this is Caleb's and my track Clap Your Hands Now. It's done really well. It's been in the Beatport Glitch top 10 for almost an entire year. Sony Pictures licensed it to be on a trailer for Spider-Man, in case you didn't know, which I can show you super quick. But yeah, the head of Sony marketing department emailed us one day and said, hey, can we use your song on Spider-Man? And this is that, which was super awesome.
You're Spider-Man.
I'm not.
You're on the ceiling. Do you lay eggs?
I have to catch this guy enough.
Anyways, so that was freaking amazing and opened up a lot of doors, and you know, to be honest, was a really nice payday. So that's why you want to make original music, even though, you know, this track isn't necessarily original because the Meters made that song that we copied, but we licensed it all properly with BMG and yada yada yada, labels, paperwork, contracts, you know, a lot of work to make that happen. But it totally paid off, you know, to get an opportunity like that. One of the biggest brands in the world using your music, it's playing on like the NBA playoffs in the States. It was playing worldwide on a TV ad campaign, and yeah, it's pretty amazing. So anyways, so this track, Clap Your Hands Now, this is a 9/8 track. So we went from F minor to E minor, which if you look at the circle of fifths isn't necessarily a combo that you think would work, but you can kind of break the rules sometimes, and that's just up to you to experiment and see how it goes. And kind of the way that I switch keys, that's where I did it right here. So this is E minor, this is F minor, but because I switched right to the drums, and because I switched from this vocal, the pull-up vocals is like a melodic vocal, whereas the Crafty Cuts vocal, which this is, which it switches back to.
Check it while we do.
It's keyed, but there's like a little bit of like musical notes to their rap and stuff, but they're not singing. So like you can kind of get away with it with rap a little bit more. So yeah, basically this is a hard key switch, but it works in my opinion. So you just gotta kind of experiment with that things. And because I just have the drums from Pull Up, I can easily put that over like a new song right here. So trying to actually mix this song with Pull Up over the actual like instruments and synths in the pull-up song probably wouldn't work good. But because I have the stems, I can kind of just do some trickery and get to this. So anyways, we switch keys right here, clap your hands now, and then I do a tempo change. So that's what this is. So 105 BPM down to 87.5, which is the halftime of drum and bass. And for the most part, when I edit tracks and stuff, I'll do it in the halftime. And that's just in the warping right here of how I work the tracks. And another important thing to say is that you always want to have your tracks, if you're making edits like this, you always want them to be in repitch. So these are the warping things. Repitch means that if the track isn't, if your tempo, which is up here, isn't at the native tempo of the track, it's going to sound different. So you always want these tracks to be, in my opinion, at their native tempo on repitch, because that's just the best sound quality that you're going to get when you export them. There's a few rules that could be broken in this, and there's another theory. Maybe I can come to your school and talk about this sometime, but for the most part, you want it in repitch. So that basically just means I'm always doing super tiny little adjustments to the tempo. So like right here, I'll come back to this mix to talk about it, but out of, let's see, these are all the same tempo, 87.5, 86. So these two drum and bass tracks, when I'm transitioning, so we're going from so this is like me and Mr. Salona's drum and bass tune that's coming out soon, and then this is the acapella from that track, this is a new tune, this is a new acapella that comes over it. This is just a little segue track, so this is just another track that I only play just for like a build-up part, and then it drops into another track. So in the span of a minute and 27 seconds, there's 1, 2, 3, acapella, another track right here. And yeah, but so right here, so this track, tempo is 87.5, so I didn't need to change the tempo from this track to this track because they're the same, but it's smaller. When it transitions from this track to this track, there's a tempo difference. This track is only 86 BPM, so I'll use just a very little part of the track, and I do this in different ways, where I'll actually switch the tempo. So this clip right here is separated from this one, and in this clip it's on complex, and then as soon as it gets to here, it's in repitch because I just changed the tempo. So I'll actually try and do this sort of thing in the breakdowns and stuff where there's no bass. Okay, so this builds up and then it drops into another track. I would have exported these two things together and this acapella would have been on the end of this track. So yeah, these two are the same, so tempo-wise, so that's what I got here to make sure that when this tune actually drops, it's in the repitch. So that was kind of just a little segue, but yeah, just the important thing is that you want all your edits and tracks to be mostly in repitch if you can. Just the other side is you can make things faster, have them a faster tempo and use beats and adjust the transients to like 16ths or 8ths depending on the track. That's a whole other thing. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about switching kind of genres. So back to clap your hands now. So it goes into the breakdown right here, and then out of the track I put it right into the acapella. So as soon as this starts happening, the tempo change and everything starts happening. So I export it with this, so when I'm playing in Serato, my turntable is staying at 0, but the track is changing tempo, because it'd be impossible to do this correctly by like moving the pitch slider, and it's moving way further from 105 BPM to 87.5, unless you had one of the like turntables that has like a super pitch, like a plus 50%, but you'd never be able to like do this accurately with two different tracks. at the same time, changing both of them. So these are the guitars from Clap Your Hands Now. And kind of how I do this mix and how I do a lot of my tempo change mixes is that I put basically a click track. So this is what, this is that track starting. This is what I am mixing with because these clicks are actually changing tempo. Same thing with this, like the. So I have a spot and I have this marked in Serato where I start mixing, and I just start this click track, and then this track plays and it goes into the breakdown. The crowd can't hear this because I'm just cueing this, so no one knows that this is happening. But right here, I flick up my up fader right for this drum and bass beat to drop. So that's a combo of the acapella. Clap your hands now, people, clap your hands. Clap your hands now, people, clap now. Clap your hands now, people, clap your hands. Clap your hands now, people, clap now. Clap your hands. So then that's the end of that mix. It drops into the full track, but actually there's a little piece of the acapella right here that I do just a little scratch with if I feel like it, or I'll just let it play depending, on lots of things. I'm having a drink, or if the turntables aren't working properly, or whatever, all the things that kind of happen in that scenario. Yeah, that is basically how I make my sets, and this is how I push the music that I play, push the creativity that I play, and so these combos that I just showed you, like, they take me hours to figure out. Like, the hard work is figuring all this out. The actual DJing of it is like the fun part, Like, I probably spend 100, 200, 300 hours on these Shambhala sets. Because, like, it looks all easy, that all this stuff is laid out. But I've probably tried 5 or 10 different acapellas or 5 or 10 different tracks or combinations or tempo changes or whatever to, like, finally arrive at this combination. Like, that's the best that I could come up with. And then as soon as I figure that out, I move on to the next piece. So what's the next one? And then we go there and we do that, and we add sound effects and we do things and we change the tempo, and I get the stems and I email people and I'm waiting and I'm moving on while I'm waiting for other things. And yeah, that happens 4 or 5, well, not 400 or 500 times, but at least 100 or 200 times when I'm making all the edits. And yeah, it just goes on and 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 on. Yeah, so that's how I use Ableton. I think it's very important, but it is totally up to you. And there's great DJs who don't do this, but this is just how myself and my friends have really, figured out how to push the boundaries. And I would think I'm one of the ones who's pushed it, the furthest, just with a lot of hard work and figuring out this cool way of mixing music together. So I hope that maybe inspires you guys to looking into doing this. It just takes a lot of work, and it's really fun to do this sort of thing. And it's just really pleasing to your audience if you do it right. And it's just like a neat, creative way to do stuff. So there's that question. What's the next one? How important is it to scratch? How long did it take you to get good? Well, I think that just depends on if you like scratching. It's not an important thing to do, but I know people like hearing it in certain amounts. I think, honestly, going to a club and listening to a guy just like tear up scratching nonstop doesn't actually sound good, and it's hard on people's ears, and people don't really like to dance to it. But a little bit of tasteful scratching can go a long way. I think guys like JFB are one of the more better at doing tasteful scratching, but he even goes, pretty overboard and like scratch solos forever and shit. But like, he's a DMC world champion, and like, that's his shtick. But he's also really good at rocking the party and not doing some crazy scratching for a while to kind of let it breathe. I do just a very little bit of scratching, usually with like acapellas and samples and stuff. I think, like, for me personally, I just get more joy scratching at home. My kind of setup is over there. I don't know if you can see, I just moved to Calgary a couple months ago, so this is my new studio. You can't really see the rig and barefoot speakers and my second monitor, and I got a cloud, and I got your acoustic paneling and all that stuff. I'm always just kind of working on things. I got a piano over here. Can't really see it, but yeah, so my scratch stuff is over there. I go through ebb and flows of scratching a lot and not scratching a lot. Before I moved from Kelowna, I was practicing an hour to an hour and a half a day, and I really leveled up kind of in my skills. I don't really do it that much at shows, but I think with scratching, my most favorite thing is just hanging out with someone who is good at scratching and just having a jam, especially if they're better than you. That's my favorite thing to learn from someone. In Kelowna, where I lived, there wasn't really anyone who was better than me, so it was just me kind of just like watching YouTube tutorials and stuff, trying to learn new scratches and things. And yeah, I'm hoping to make it out to one of the Scratcher Calgarys soon-ish. I'm going on tour again, basically for like 2.5 months in a couple days. But yeah, so I mean, I've been scratching since 2005. Basically, I started scratching as soon as I started to learn how to DJ. It was just something that I was really interested in. I actually went to the Canadian DMC finals in 2006, and I think they were in Ottawa. I came 13th out of 14th, which I thought was awesome because it meant I wasn't the worst. Like I said, the skill level in Kelowna wasn't huge, so thankfully I won. I practiced really hard. I did the best I could, but like I wasn't even close to being on the level as other people. I was actually roommates at the DMC with Wondercut, who won the elimination challenge and won the routine. So he went to the Worlds. Really nice guy. Met a lot of super talented people. I met Vect at that Canadian final too. He was just scratching in the eliminations, and he was so good back then. And now he's like a multiple world and team champion. Still friends to this day. Friends with a few of the guys, but yeah. I mean, I love scratching and I love practicing, and for me, it's just like a discipline and trying to get better and train my brain to do cool and new things and getting over those hurdles of sucking and then learning how to do something very slowly and basically, and learn how to do it faster, and then double time or quadruple time, half time, whatever you want to do. So I would just say don't overdo it when you're DJing, because not everyone likes to listen to it. One of my practice sessions, like how many hours routines? Well, I think I kind of covered that. I practice when I can. I get out of it too. Like I haven't been practicing my scratching much, and I actually really notice it when I do my scratching on the road. When I'm like in a deep routine, I'll just be like so much more confident to do different scratches. And when I'm on the road and when I'm in shows, I tend to do the same scratches over, which are still tasteful, and it's mostly like kind of chirps and stab kind of stuff. But the average person who's on the dance floor doesn't know the difference between a 2-click flare or an Audubon or a chirp or a scribble or whatever. No one cares. They just like, if they see you moving the record on the turntable and it sounds half decent, they're going to be impressed, because a lot of people can't scratch. So if you even have just some basic cuts and do it tastefully and don't overdo it, I think that's good for shows. And then how much you want to practice is up to you. I'd say most of my work right now goes into actually producing music. That's like where my goals lay. I'm just trying to be, just always be working and getting better on making tracks, and that is a never long journey. So there's lots of disciplines. You want to be a good scratcher, you want to be a good DJ, you want to be a good producer, you want to be a good human being. It all takes a lot of time, so you just need to do that. Well, dedicate as much time as you can to whichever ones you want to do, because they're never ending in how long you can sink into it. So yeah, that's how I make my sets. That's kind of my thoughts on music. Spark, I believe your name is. I hope that answered some questions. I hope you guys enjoyed this stuff. And big up Seasick. I hope you guys have a great time learning, and hit me up in the spring or the summer. And hopefully I can stop by your school and say hi and meet you guys. Okay, now we get to work. I'm working on an album right now, and go back to Australia on tour in 4 days. So I'm getting ready for that. All the best. We'll see you guys. I'm playing a show in Calgary on April 20th. So that'll be my next one. So hopefully see you guys then. Take care.